You know what, I like Tomodachi a lot, so here's 30 minutes of useless information about Tomodachi games that is going to be less interesting than most of my videos, but it is going to get more views than usual anyways.
Yep, it does say cynic on my shirt. What's that about?
Tomodachi Life has a Japanese exclusive prequel called Tomodachi Collection. I thought this was common knowledge, but apparently not, and this is probably the most popular fact I'll mention in this video, so strap on. Tomodachi Collection came about as an idea even before the Miis were created, and it's in fact a tech demo for Tomodachi Collection that hinted Miyamoto and Iwata into creating the Miis properly, eventually taking the system created for Tomodachi Collection and putting it on the Wii 3 years earlier, with many improvements of course. Tomodachi Collection was initially based on a game called Otoko Hamtaro, Tomodachi Daisuken Dechu. This game let you put in the information about your friends to turn them into pseudo hamsters that let you check their compatibility with each other. The creator of this really liked the idea, so he pushed to create a better developed version of this on the DS, henceforth Tomodachi Collection. Before making the game for casual audiences, they intended the game to be mostly for women and was to be sold under the name Otona no Onna no Uranai Techo, or fortune-telling notebook for adult women. Initially intended to increase the sales for that demographic, but since the audience took off while development of the title dragged, they eventually evolved it into something else. There's even a slight amount of footage about it, showing the proto-Miis you've probably seen in other Mii-related videos. I like these visuals here to be fair. By the way, this footage was first shown on the Tomodachi Life announcement, which means there is in fact Tomodachi Life Lost Media, which involves all of this footage, which Nintendo is just storing somewhere and it's not publicized, and it would be really cool if it was. The developers of Tomodachi Collection made the Mii API separate from Tomodachi Collection so other games on the DS could implement Miis. Much to their surprise, this happened even before they put out their own game when Personal Trainer Walking included it in. Not the only time Personal Trainer beat Tomodachi to the punch on implementing a feature to their games. Personal Trainer Cooking was first released in 2008 in Japan, where you can hear the synthesized voices beautifully since Pierre, the mascot of that game, has his entire gimmick based around the TTS system that eventually showed up in Tomodachi Collection. That part of the functionality remains Japan exclusive to this date. In fact, Iwata confessed in a now-deleted seminar conference that Western audiences had 4 times more Mii players, so it's heavily speculated that Collection didn't make it out of Japan because they figured the text-to-speech system was too advanced. The Tomodachi Collection soundtrack was purposefully made to sound cheap and awkward, clunky, so to speak. I think this was highly successful and gave the game a ton of personality. Life went on to have a more friendly approach with these concepts, so there is some disparity on the musical tone of these games. According to Collection's director, when making the music for the title, he told composer Daisuke Shiba that he hadn't taken his pants off, after Dario Argento's music selection for Suspiria surprised him, inspiring him to include more unusual sounds on his projects. You know, the horror movie about death witches? If you're into horror, you should really watch those movies because it's incredible how people are like dying brutally, but you're just like grooving to the music. Tomodachi Collection didn't actually have any design plans, and most of it was done on the go, hence why it feels so random. One day a programmer would just decide to code in the job fortune telling and everybody would just see it later and have no clue about it. This extended to the Mii singing and the favorite food mechanic. Standard Mii data is precisely 74 bytes. That's ridiculously small, and it would fit on a Wii remote. Development of Tomodachi Collection itself was troubled and staggered for 2 years, mostly because a great part of the team got moved to work on the Wii version of the system full-time, but also because the concept was so peculiar that basically no one understood what the game would be like until the last few months of development. Shoutouts to the GOAT Masanori Umino, who with 1 year at Nintendo basically pushed Collection's development by creating the entire apartment system that we now know and love. This guy basically made Tomodachi Collection in many ways, and is completely unrecognized even on the Nintendo Wiki. That's insane. Tomodachi Collection has this unused graphic of people on a roller coaster. This is actually probably the first image used to test the idea of putting the Mii's faces over live action stock images as revealed in an interview. This image is probably unused because the usage rights of it might not be purchased by Nintendo. It could easily be a Google image or simply a license agreement that didn't extend to the released product. Unused in the game's files, you can find alternate models for every single establishment and a different map for Tomodachi Collection. It seems like originally your town was supposed to be a coastal city that eventually got replaced with the island. This was probably to make the island navigation more interesting. Tomodachi Life has surprisingly little unused data. It's mostly placeholders for different elements. There is one image that shows the original Tomodachi Collection island with an extra island to the side, so it's possible that they originally wanted to use the same layout and chose against it for whatever reason. This image is of course unused. The game files contain these textures of a horn silhouette with a spear and another one of the same silhouette on the ground with the Japanese sadness symbol on top. Not clear what this means, but it seems unused. Maybe a Tomodachi Quest placeholder. The same folder also contains this image of a house, and that's it. These two images are supposed to have a Mii's face on top, but these particular instances go unused. They even have the skin mask texture incorrectly set up, which means it probably was used early in development to test something. Usually these mask files dictate the skin color of which human in the picture, using different colors to replace with the assigned Mii's skin color. Though some examples use a monochrome texture. One of the figures even has a Mii pin on their shirt, which leads me to believe that this is definitely a Nintendo developer. For the record, you do actually get to see the background of this news report. It is using the Mii Strikes a Pose news segment. This image of a hand showcasing a candy was supposed to show a Mii's face in the middle for the Mii Sweets broadcast. It was even set up for 3D viewing, but I guess something about the image didn't quite click for people, so they just swapped it for some bare bones 3D models. This means this texture goes unused and it's not even present in European versions of the game. This image of a hole in the sand seems to point to the hibernation news report involving a crab at some point, though this might be used in the Japanese or Korean version, I'm not sure. This guy holding a fish goes unseen in the game because his texture is obscured completely by another guy in the same pose with a different fish. Same thing happens with this couch, obscured by a more appealing looking couch. Same thing happens with people on this beach, but this is just because they left the original image in the files. News reports are number 1 to 234, which corresponds to all of the reports in the Japanese version. However, reports onwards includes the news report exclusive to English versions, like the observation tower announcement. This brings the number to 243, but for some reason, numbers 235 to 238 as well as 241 are all nowhere to be found. More used models, there's just a cube called primitive model in the game's files. Every Tomodachi Quest variant has this object named RPG off screen. It's just an image that says image 128. I suspect this image is actually what's used to apply the pixelated filter over Tomodachi Quest, and that this effect is achieved by downscaling those elements' resolution to a factor of that image's resolution. Because it seems that this exact system is the one that's used in the Gaze the Mii minigame. When I say every version of Tomodachi Quest, I mean that it has a variation in the files for every language, despite the fact that none of the versions translate any of the textures. Maybe they load different food or language files somehow? Data for the sliding puzzles contains two textures named Depth and Image, depicting different faces and gradients, most likely to test overlaying the Mii's over top the backgrounds of the slide puzzles, though these ones seem to be completely unused in the end. The theme park scene data contains a model called Pigeon that contains a whole one polygon with an animation and all. I guess they wanted pigeons in the park at some point, but it never happened. This is not an unused thing to lead us off, more like a used thing, but the game has 12 different copies of the amusement park's data, of which 4 are seasonal variants of the place, which is the case with most other 3D scenes in the game. However, these 4 are multiplied 3 times simply to include 3 variations of the roller coaster animation, which is outrageous considering this is one of the heaviest scenes in the files. This is horrible space management, which I can only hope was due to there being no other option. It's funny, but means that eating the cafe will not actually get full. It's just ghost food, ghost food! The autograph treasure in Tomodachi Collection is described as being the autograph of an unknown person, but the truth is far from that. It clearly says Takahashi, who is presumably the director of Tomodachi Life, Ryutaro Takahashi. Not sure if it's his actual autograph though. Tomodachi Collection also has an umbilical cord as a prize you can get. Yeah, it's a Japanese thing, don't question it. You most likely definitely know this, but most treasures in Tomodachi Life have different descriptions in every version of the game. Why? I don't know, I never got why. It's like the entire game got completely localized twice and some content was removed and added almost at random. The chess piece treasure is a shogi piece in the Japanese version. Shogi is like a spin-off of chess that is very popular in Japan, and there goes all of my Japanese people watching this video because I offended them fundamentally. The Korean version of Tomodachi Life has its own travel to Jeju Island. Going with that, you can get a Harubang doll as a souvenir from Mii's that go there. There's other region-only travels, but finding about them online is pretty easy, so I think I'd rather find more interesting details to talk about. The spatula treasure in Japan and Korea is made out of wood. I didn't know utensils there tended to be wooden, but let's run with it. For whatever reason, the Rob treasure in Japan has a different image, which is still the Rob in the box. This applies with much of Nintendo's apparel that is available as treasure, such as the
Gone.
All versions of Tomodachi Life have a different color box art, except for Japanese and Korean those share. The European version uses this screenshot from the Japanese box art, which is actually just the same picture with the text being retranslated. Also, a lot of pictures are just completely recreated for no reason, which is why the other one stands out. The only image that I think makes sense to recreate is the last one, because the Japanese version of this minigame is very visually distinct, given that it's sumo instead of football. You know how shampoo sometimes has instructions? Well, the only version of the box art that bothered to add a tag about basic reading comprehension being necessary is the NTCS version, and I can't help but wonder why. Are we that stupid? Tomodachi Life is available in Spanish, but not in Latin America because games are translated to either versions of the language individually due to substantial differences. We've only just now begun translating games to both versions of the language. Behold! This is the most reused stable in Tomodachi Life! It shows up in the chase stream of the Mii Homes and Frying Pan event, as well as a bunch of other stuff, I guess. The amusement park ignores personality types when a Mii performs an animation. Usually they walk different depending on their personality, but it's not the case here. This happens in other places like in Quirky Questions and stuff, but it's not that interesting to go into the details of it. When a news event runs on a building's unlock, every building is depicted in the news report itself, except for the amusement park, which is a stock picture despite being fully modeled. The food mart also does not have a broadcast since it's unlocked before the news tower. The Toilet Squadron news broadcast is for some reason different in Japan. The Miis have been repositioned, but not this Mii that appears to be standing on water. I think this is because the building is literally not a bathroom at all, it's just some random building. And to make this clear, in the Western versions they added bathroom signs that are pretty badly photoshopped in. And then they scooted a Mii over so you could see the gloriously squished male symbol. This is like sort of really fun comedy. The food warming reunion broadcast mentions 8 years despite the fact that most players don't have apartments, let alone Miis for 8 years. Some news broadcasts have a don't try this at home disclaimer, but the challenge bottle rocket ride does not despite being mentioned in the broadcast itself. This is only in the NSTC versions, the European version does have the warning somehow. The space weather forecast news report is pretty unique in the sense that it has two mistakes. The most present one is the fact that it mentions the sun is at 6,000 degrees, which is pretty close to the Celsius measurement used in most of the world. However, it is not rechecked in the North American release, so this number is off by about 4,000. The second one is that it mentions rain in Mars, despite the fact that Mars notoriously has no water, but this show could work if they mentioned snow instead, as it can in fact snow in Mars. This is not a mistranslation. The roof gardening broadcast is not a reference to Plants vs Zombies, but it could be. Relax, I'll handle it. I am the angry pumpkin. The architect and the builder arrive calmly with such purpose. They're playing at the residence. The heads are soaring. The Mii name Crab news report is notable for the fact that it includes the turban shell food item, which is only available in the Japanese version. The food our size and world largest food item broadcasts share the same backdrop. Here's a list of places mentioned by the news reports that are never seen anywhere. Botanical garden, driving school, bus stop, game center, the street, public restroom, a mountain, another mountain, a third mountain, zoo, Mii named bakery, ice cream parlor, riverbank, spas multiple, shipwreck, food named lake, food named cinema, a lab, fancy shop, Mii named town, drain pub, though this one is at least implied, the woods, big Mii names burger shop, A street, the local library, a food item rock, and finally the Modern Art Museum. The school and subway station get mentions in news reports and they do appear in game, though not anywhere in the descendable island. A few other sites are mentioned, but it's not explicitly stated that they are on the island, so I'm skipping them. You can speed up getting all of the newscasts by deleting the Mii that is giving the current active broadcast. This will result in the game rolling a new one. Watching the newscast is not really tracked and there's more than 200 newscasts, so you can just log them all, meaning that this is kinda useless. Miis in Tomodachi Collection can be constipated for 2 years, according to one specific news event. The USA Tomato broadcast is cool because I said so. The Mii name sets up company report has this really weird looking building that almost looks like concept art for the game, but I'm only speculating. The Mii Clo game news announcement has these incredibly shitty cutouts of the Tomodachi Collection box art in the background. This stands out because it's also using 3DS promotional art that is newer in the background, which I've extracted for your viewing convenience. The massive bee-sided report obscures the beast, but it's likely a cow or a sheep. Its tag is even found just off screen. Behind the Mii giving the news, there's a spotlight casting the shadow of the news tower. I almost missed one to the point where I thought it was unused completely, but no, it's just there and I'm a stupid idiot. A few news broadcasts are Japanese exclusive and also almost not online, hence why the footage looks kinda bad here. This one here shows a portrait of a Mii who was supposedly previously fat and lost weight in the modern day, and I think you can tell why Nintendo decided not to bring this one to the West. There's an even less common Japanese-only broadcast of a Mii in a backroom that got removed due to possible begunning from life allegories. Miis actually get pissed off if you back out of the market without buying anything. By this I mean they point it out and they don't really do anything else. The fancy restaurant has a 4-minute jazz song that you likely couldn't hear under the sounds of you wanting to projectile vomit at literally the most anxiety-inducing thing in the entire game. The Dockley's music track is unique in the sense that it's an outlier in the fact that it samples the map themes from Tomodachi Collection, making this the only place where you can hear those iconic first 6 notes in the non-Japanese version of the game. You can hear these notes in Green Pirate's Boba Beach, which samples the Dockley's track. You may know this one from the Vine of a Dog in a Shoe Store. Either way, it's the most popular instance of Tomodachi being sampled. I am pretty known for talking about Japanese exclusive compatibility tester tracks, but here's another one you may not have known. The 80% to 89% Friendship Result music is actually a remix of the Pilot Wings Resort's result screen. The first Tomodachi Collection blog on the internet that I could find seems to be this Japanese blog from the day after the game's release. Is this internet history? No. Mies are not allowed to love trash food like ruined meals, but actually, there's a few foods which are adjacent to trash food in the game's coding, with a similar probability of being hated, except that they can actually be a Mies favorite on rare occasions. I like many of these, so I feel called out. These include celery, yerba mate, space food, eggplant, sardines, durian, habaneros, escargot, dreams of Californication, garlic, tap water, green juice, and only in Japan, natto, which looks like Mies can sell you garbage in the morning market. During Cinco de Mayo, the clothing shop gets special decorations that actually have nothing to do with Cinco de Mayo in any way. During USA Independence Day, people with a US copy of the game will get hot dog decorations on their pawn shop. Other regions have regional events as well, with balloons decorating most Independence Days. The European Bonfire Night is one of the most interesting ones, as the posters are pretty specific. Dogs and cats have the same animation data, which means they can technically do animations of the other species to wonderful results. Observe. They also share animation data with the sandbags, which have animations, I guess. It's for when the Mies punch them. The photorealistic interior in Tomodachi Collection depicts Nintendo's very own headquarters. The one in life does not, however. The Mii apartments have a BPM of 88. You probably didn't notice, but you could have gotten a golden spoon if you fed your Miis 1,000 foods. That's a big number. When any angry Mii is fed their worst food ever, the fire will melt along with them. The eyes in the Tomodachi Life logo are supposed to look like Miis, which is pretty obvious, but I sure took my long time to notice. If you idle in a location for too long, the game kicks you out. You probably never saw it because it takes like 10 minutes for that to happen. Common knowledge is that beds in Life's Japanese version are instead futons, a traditional Japanese bedding that is literally on the ground, which makes a lot more sense considering they like plop it out and sleep. Less common knowledge is that the beds in Tomodachi Life have the same rough geometry as they do in Miitopia, with folds at the same locations in the pillows and blankets, most likely a reused asset. You can reliably wake up Miis if you edit their personality while they are sleeping. This is very rude of you. Did you know music boxes sometimes contain a tiny version of the island? I managed to give you a closer look at it here. Incidentally, this is the same model that's used in the game's banner, except this one has a boat. Traveler Miis have a tiny sleeping bag for their teddy bears, and that is so infinitely cute that I can just drop dead on the spot. The most popular video about Tomodachi Life on YouTube is, as of 2024, Dante Damo in Minecraft's or very own island, Tomodachi Life, followed by Peanut Butter Gamer's Tomodachi Life review. The creators in the following top 8 who will certainly get their names mispronounced are Alex Garbus, Lauren Seaside, Beanie Beansauce, Professor, Nintendo of America themselves, Salty DK Dan, RD Game, and The Escapist. Smash Tomatoes comes in at 33rd place? I'm disappointed in y'all. That PBJ video is not a PBJ video as it contains no mentions of Arthur. Is this joke a little too niche? He uploaded a video the other day when he played it again and Arthur shows up, so everything is right in the universe again. You can only get the panda suit by playing the full game after completing the demo. This is the only cloth item that I can recall having a unique unlock method. Why do we call it an island when it's actually 2 islands? I have no sources on this, but Tomodachi Life 3 is real, trust me. Originally, I had written that Nintendo deserves some slack regarding the whole situation around patching a bug that allowed Mies to be gay, saying that this was fair because, according to many internet accounts, Miihomes fundamentally break under the situation where 2 Miis are the same gender. But as it turns out, it rarely messes up and it works relatively well, aside from some stuff like the house owners missing in the house name and gender-specific assignments. Like, here the game positions the 2 guys they set up together at the same spot, since that's the spot where the Mii should be placed if the gender check is male. It does seem like someone or a group of people are going out of their way to make this stuff that doesn't work sound more severe than it actually is.
Ultimately, it was expected of Nintendo to simply remove the root of the bug than to retroactively revamp portions of the system to appease what was, at the time, a minority of users. So even though I still think the slack they received is a little undeserved, I'm glad it happened, because that means that if they are working on a potential sequel, they will consider letting us do severe crimes in 63 countries. Tomodachi Life actually considers a lot of stuff corrupted, and though it often saves a backup, sometimes you get the save file is corrupted and will now reset message. You can't do anything about this but cry. The music that plays from the radio gift is dependent on the 4 major personality types. There's a popular theory that apartments changing so fast means interiors are actually just holographic, but consider this. If the Miis are tiny creatures, wouldn't it make more sense for the swap to simply be akin to swapping a drawer? Okay, but this is more like speculation than a fact, so let's keep on it. The intended purpose of specifying Islander birthdays is actually so that you'd get a natural reminder of their birthday by playing the game. I didn't compute this at all until I saw a celebrity's birthday through this method, but I'm pretty sure other people didn't put the pieces together either. Mind you, they still use that functionality for all of the tester features, which were pretty important to Tomodachi Collection's, concept. Here's some cool details about Mii homes. The little bathroom bottles say Mii, that's awesome. The sewing machine also does say Mii. The fancy restaurant serves the same food Miis can sometimes eat at their homes. I'm starting to think this place is a scam. Mii houses are unaffected by seasons, so they have green grass during winter. Time for some facts about the island. Island addresses can be named after any food in the game, except special foods, those don't count. This means you cannot live in ruined meal aisles. The highest amount of quality of life you can have in an island is 500 stars, because the number goes up by 1 per each 20 levels each Mii gets. You'd simply need to have every Mii at level 99, and honestly that's just so easy. You may notice Tomodachi Life assigns a community vibe after enough Miis are on your island, and these seem to be based on personality types throughout your island. And it's time to list them off! 5 of a single type get you the following: eccentric for softies and dreamers, emotional for optimists and trendsetters, considerate for bodies and free spirits, reckless for entertainers and charmers, pushy for leaders and adventurers, survivalist for designers and go-getters, focused for brainiacs and thinkers, and thoughtful for artists and lone wolves. More vibes exist for different combinations, such as artistic, cautious, enthusiastic, ambitious, lively, chill, and gentle, though it's hard for me to tell what kind of Miis exactly get you each vibe. I know that you can achieve the completely average vibe by having a full balance with equal parts of each. But where is the island even? Well, there is no defined location. The Unbelievable Dream has it located in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where Hawaii would be located. However, the super old time favorite animation shows it somewhere around Greenland or the Arctic Ocean. Oh yeah, these two animations actually have different models, with the foot animation having a more primitively textured Earth, as it lacks a normal map and overlays the cloud texture into the globes. I suspect this is to save on potential load times when the animation data for the event is queued up in the apartments. There's a loading screen before any dream. On a cool fact, that Unbelievable Dream actually keeps the notifications from the island model itself. It's rare, but the new sign appears here as well. The European description for the hot dog concerns me a little because it's revolving around a certain specific mustard fetish. Because it's hotter if you use a lot of mustard? I don't know what they meant by this. For some reason, Quirky Questions is named with more disappointment or intrigue in every version that isn't English or Japanese. Not sure about the Korean version. There's even a custom exclamation point graphic, so it's weird that it becomes replaced by an ellipsis in most languages. So I took a look around some environments in Tomodachi and found some really cool interesting details that I'm gonna talk about to you now. Most calendars in the game are labeled for 2012, as you can see in the office interior or the Mii Apartments management desk. The wedding interior has an invitation on display with legible text. Can you guess the date? That's right, June 16, 2012, obviously! Photo studio scenes purposefully have no 3D data so that the image looks like flat backdrops if you go into 3D mode. The rap battle boombox has level displays that aren't remotely animated. Traveler Miis can buy balloons from Freddy Fazbear! Why is the water at the food market talking? It's trying its hardest to be transparent to its investors! Wait, that's like tap water. Are we sure the Miis aren't drinking sentient creatures? The clock at the pawn shop is only right 2 times a day because it's broken, but it's a pawn shop so we can accept this as just a broken antique. Every newspaper in the game is the exact same and shows the face-stretching news report. It's very known that breadfruit branding seen around the cafe is different in Japan, as Tobakaido. Most of the games mentioned of this were replaced. Yes, most. The strollers and baby chairs in every version got missed, so they still have Tobakaido branding. The observation tower has this plaque at the entrance, which is generally only briefly seen when Mii skate around it. Getting a closer look, the text says Rockmyanyumi Takutata Nura Desugutrig. We hired a team of scientists to tell us what this means. Here's some info about interiors that I found interesting. I looked at every interior and in lots of details to find the deep cuts, like these vinyls in the antique interior, which are nigh impossible to see normally, but include a guy in a violin, some sort of orchestra director on a record that might be titled Get Transport, this abstract cover that says classic on the third word, and a super obscure bare bones cover with some barely blurry text that I'm not even gonna try bothering figuring out. The mystery interior has these two figures taking care of an alien. But look closer, the hands are melded together. It's a fake! The locker interior has this Gyro Zeppeli looking poster, but it's actually just a guy playing tennis. Why is this guy orange like that? The laboratory interior has a non-standard Earth map, peculiar because Earth looks the same as in real life as we've already seen in this very video. Similarly, the pirate interior also has a non-standard map, but I guess this could just be an area map. In fact, the boys' classroom and library interiors also contain standard Earth globes. The cave interior compass is animated. This is not hard to see, so I got a closer look for you. The hobby interior basically has Satan written in big letters. How did this get approved but not gays? It also has these two jelly guys who are very cute. Talking about cute guys, these two plushes in the goth interior both have the same crown. Usually a king and a queen have different crowns to differentiate between the genders, which means that either these two are mortal enemies forever trying to take the throne, or they are a sex same icon ruling over their kingdom. And I will appreciate art of either of these situations sent to me on Twitter. Thank you. Ooh, the hair situation for these two is going to be awkward, isn't it? The treehouse interior has this box toy, which is actually full on display with the hobby interior. The doorknob of the humble interior is a Coke can. How cheap is this place and why do I still have too little money to afford it? Guys, remember that you can give me a soup. The yellow interior has a PC displaying Windows 7. The logo on the wine bottle inside the skyscraper interior looks especially like a Quitter who in terms of human Pokemon breed. The Japanese version of the rock stage interior has this cat with a Clefairy looking tail, but for some reason they replaced this with Redfoot branding in the other releases despite the fact that it's not at all necessary. The soccer interior translates most of the sponsors, but not the triangle shaped thingies towards the ground. The art gallery interior has half of a car on display, but funnily enough, the garage interior has the other half. Notice the license plate is the same? One of the wanted posters in the western interior maybe is Mario, but it's too blurry to tell 100%. The Moody interior's books are mostly random topics. One clearly is about coffee, but the others are what looks like gibberish text, maybe like room design. The cool thing I wanted to point out is that some of them have textured spines. The skull interior is different between Japanese and other versions, which means the non-Asian version was thrown together for the localization, ultimately resulting in this beautiful computer that is actually just a monitor and doesn't have a computer anywhere. Better yet, the TV is also missing its DVD player, there is no chalk in the room, and the supply closet is completely empty. This entire classroom is useless. These fruits in the tropical resort interior are nonsense. Like, let's see, the drinks are clearly coconuts, and these are clearly apples and bananas, but then stuff gets complicated. Yes, this could be grapes and blueberries, that one's pretty easy. But what about this pear? If it is a pear, it is massive. The center coconut is confusing because then the resort just has two kinds of coconuts randomly, and then there's this orange thingy. It's most likely a persimmon since that's what they eat in Japan, but its shape looks like a giant kumquat. While the kitchen interior is the same as the frying pan event, the office interior is unrelated to the Age-O-Matic event. Look, I've looked at a lot of gibberish analyzing these rooms, but the office room kinda takes the cake because it's clearly visibly gibberish. It's is not a word. Good is a word here. This down here looks like cheese, but it actually says Chet? Who is Chet? Hey, about that green line under the big word. Where's the green marker? The hospital interior has a banana bag IV drip on hand, which is weird considering these are mainly prescribed on alcoholics and the only alcohol you can find in Tomodachi is the bottles in the western interior. I guess they figured on this color because it actually looks like a liquid compared to like something like a saline solution, which would just look white. The Jet Setter interior has another 2012 calendar. This is depicting May and it looks all correct, except I'm nitpicky! And it turns out the Sundays were on the 1st, 8th and 15th, so on. They were on the 6th, 13th, so on. Also, this dress would never fit on me. All the dice in the colorful interior have 4s on all sides. Useless, I say! Regularly, the images on items are too small to tell what they are, but at least the music interior has a few recognizable images, such as this one with a Mii render taken directly from the Tomodachi Collection box. You even get a new image of them in a nearby book, which means this is probably the only Mii depicted consistently in the Tomodachi franchise. I shall call him Colby Azula, but you're free to ignore me if he never shows up again. All clocks in almost every interior point to 1010, though some exceptions exist, like the cartoon interiors because it's wacky and zany and stuff.
You can blow out the candles at birthday news announcements to get a great surprise from all of the attending me's, and then they just continue singing like nothing happened. This is very rude of you. The game has a surprising amount of musical references in its item descriptions, such as calling habaneros red hot chili peppers after the band, including get up stand up in the description of the reggae hat after the Bob Marley song. The driver's outfit has a reference to Drive My Car by the Beatles, quoting, "You got a driver's outfit and that's a start." Most notably is the punching bags description, reading, "With this you can sting like a tiger and have the eye of the bee," or something like that. A reference to the Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, which is honestly not a deep cut at all. The red chili pepper itself does not have this reference description, worsened by the fact that it behaves like chili peppers are spicier than habaneros, which isn't remotely the case. For how much the game was careful about regional differences, tacos are an insult to real tacos in any version of the game. What the fuck is this crunchy shell? The US description for tomatoes suggests you can smash them, and isn't that just cool?
The EO description of the crab specifies it as fruit inside, even though the sprite clearly doesn't.
The EO description for the pineapple thinks it's trying to be far too brave, but let's be honest, pineapple on pizza is great and I'm tired of pretending that this is a hot take. It is not, many people like it. You want a hot take? I'll give you a hot take! Most of your favorite celebrities, content creators and streamers have the personality of a plank. Super all-time favorite foods can replace cold medicine, which is not true to life, but I wish it was wholeheartedly. Skipping the super all-time favorite animation at the right time can result in a glitch where the takeoff steam is still in the room and your meat turns into Astro Boy. You cannot skip worst ever food animations. The longest name a me can have is Don't believe me? Ooh, that one came in extra spicy! Tall meats have the same size of bones and rig, which means animations like clapping clip into themselves aggressively. Using HD grease has the potential to completely break the music concerts. Have a listen.
It's a real loud bark. Too much methodology. Sentences really long out. Let's see if that is really long.
Selecting the expression on a me photo is regularly done with the random button, but there's a trick that I learned. You can set up a me's expression, back up and remove them from that spot, then repeat. The game will remember the expression for that specific spot, and thus they will all have the expression you want. Finally, you can now get creative with expressions. Baby and traveler clothes are categorized the same as any clothing for any me. You cannot get them normally though, you need to hack it in. However, if you hack them in, you can do something beautiful that I want to show you to end this video.
Thanks for being so nice. Please accept this token of my gratitude.
Oh no, it's so cursed!
Behold! The floating me!
Murder Growl. Some days I'm feeling stuck in the north. The only way to soothe my soul is so I've been done with the one piece from you. I rise up all night, I'm constipated. I can't get to sleep, see. It's not, I consume at you, or let my guests become ecstasy.
And with this, we should have 30 minutes of random Tomodachi life facts that you probably didn't know. When was the last time you saw someone show you unused content that is newly discovered on a game for a random video? Like, I'm stacked here! Now if you excuse me, I'll be eating something for once after releasing this video and I'm so excited!